Welcome back. Hopefully you got something to drink or eat or do something to keep your brain going right now, because we're on the second half of the two-part. This is 9.4 and 9.5 lessons on tangent, sine, and cosine. And we're in basically step one, write out Sohcahtoa. Okay? Figure out what you have based on the angle that you have, and label your sides. It just takes a second. You can use an A for opposite, A for adjacent, O for opposite, and a H for hypotenuse. So your hypotenuse is always your longest side. It's always directly across from the right angle. From this angle, this is your opposite side, and this is your adjacent side. So what do I have here? Well, I have adjacent, right? This is actually what I'm looking at that I have that I can use. So I'm going to come over to my Sohcahtoa and I'm going to circle my A's and cross out the last one that I won't need. This tells me I'm going to use tangent and cosine. When I use cosine, I'll be solving for D, the length of the hypotenuse. And when I use tangent, I'll be solving for C, the length of the opposite side. So you're solving for different things each time. So cosine 47 equals 10 over D, and that is 14.7. Okay, all you're going to do is do 10 divided by cosine 47. Remember, if you have the letter in the denominator, the variable down here, you're just going to switch these two places. So 10 divided by cosine 47. So you basically divide on this. Okay. And then so that was cosine. For tangent, you are going to do the same exact thing, except you're looking for the opposite side here, which is C over 10, the adjacent side that you know. So again, you're finding out what you know so that you can find out what you don't know. And this is the one where you just multiply these two. So you are going to multiply. So it ends up being 10 times tangent 47, which is 10.7. And you just solve for those two sides using an angle and a side. You gotta admit that's kind of stupid cool. Okay. Step one. I like changing up colors too. Have you noticed? All right, so step one. Sohcahtoa. Okay. Circle the angle. Label your sides according to that angle. So this is your hypotenuse, your longest side. This is adjacent, and this is opposite of that angle, so opposite. So what do you have? Well, I have opposite and opposite. What am I not using? I'm not going to use cosine in this one. When I use sine, I'll be solving for the hypotenuse length. And when I use tangent, I'll be solving for the adjacent side length. So that's what they're going to be solving. So sine 65 is equal to the opposite 28 over the hypotenuse, which is they're calling B. The hypotenuse they're calling B. Okay, so that's 30.9. And again, you're going to divide on this because you have what you're solving for in the denominator, which means you're going to have 28 divided by 65, sine 65. On the other one, tangent 65, you are going to have opposite, which is 28, over adjacent, which is A. Again, you're going to divide on this. So you're going to have 28 divided by tangent 65, and you end up with 13.1. Okay. Hopefully we're kind of catching on at this point. We're going to do a couple of word problems, and then we're going to talk about elevation and depression. So anytime I see a word problem when it comes to these, I just draw a right triangle because you know that's what you're going to be using. So draw yourself a quick little right triangle and label stuff as you're reading this. So a person is standing 100 feet away from the center of a closed off area. So there's this brush fire. You can't read this, but there's this brush fire, right? Camera's attached to a kite, filming the damage caused by a brush fire. So there was a brush fire there. And the person is standing right here. And they're looking at a kite that is 25 degrees angle viewing from them to the kite. This would be considered an angle of elevation from their viewpoint. We'll go over that more in a minute. Okay. But the actual viewpoint they're saying in the problem is depression. So they're calling it an angle of depression from the camera to the person. Well, the camera is on the kite. And remember, well, we'll talk about it in a minute, but it's looking down. So if I just form like parallel lines here, right here and here, I got alternate interior angles, which is why this person, if this is looking down at the person from that angle, this person's looking up at that angle. Okay. You'll learn more about that in a few minutes. That's your fire. So figure out what you have to figure out what you don't have. That's basically trigonometry. Figure out what you got. So Sohcahtoa, I get really fast at writing that too. Figure out what you have. I have my adjacent side. So I'm not going to be using sine. And what do I need to solve for here? It says, how long is the string on the kite? So if I'm solving for how long the string is on the kite, I'm solving for this side right here. And what is that side? Well, this was adjacent, this was opposite, and this is your hypotenuse. So I'm solving for the hypotenuse, which means I'm not going to use tangent either. Okay? Figure out what you have and what you don't have and what you need. I need that line. I don't need this side. It didn't tell me I needed this side, so I'm not going to solve for it. So cosine 25 is equal to adjacent over the hypotenuse. So we can call that x too if you want to, but we can just call it hypotenuse. Solving for this on the bottom, that means you're going to divide. So you divide 100 divided by cosine 25, and you get 110.3 feet. That's how long your string is. All right, that seemed like a really long explanation, but we're getting from where we solve for everything to where we get solved for specific things, especially in story problems. And again, I know you can't read the whole story. Well, you could if I move the paper, I guess. Yeah, let me see if I can move myself so I can move the paper. All right, if the string on the kite is 200 feet long, so now they're telling us the string is 200 feet long, how far must the person be away using that same angle to film the damage of the closed off area? So how far away must the person be? So I'm looking for how far the person is from the brush fire. Okay, so step one, Sohcahtoa, figure out what you have and what you need, right? I have the hypotenuse right here. I need the adjacent side to that from that angle. This is the adjacent side, hypotenuse, opposite. And I need the adjacent side, which means I'm using cosine again. So cosine 25 equals x over 200. You would multiply these two. That's the difference between the two. And you get x equals 181.2 feet. So that means that person must be standing at least 181.2 feet away from the center with the kite at a 25-degree angle of 200 feet of strength. Okay, now let's talk about the process of how we do this. So I've been going over this and I've been telling you over and over, right Sohcahtoa, right Sohcahtoa, right Sohcahtoa. Step 1, circle the angle you got. So whatever this angle measurement is, circle it. So let's say this is 62 degrees. Okay, I would circle that. Step 2, from this angle, I want to label all of the triangle. So I know this is my hypotenuse, I know this is opposite, and I know this is adjacent. From that angle, if I pick this angle or this angle was the one I needed, then this would be my opposite and this would be my adjacent. But I have this angle, opposite, adjacent, right next to, and your hypotenuse. Okay? When you set up a problem, remember it's always with the degrees. So that's what that's for. That's what this part is, this large part right here when you set up Sohcahtoa. That's for your degrees, your degrees, your degrees. And then this is for your sides, and your sides. So when you set up a problem, you're trying to figure out what you have and what you don't have. If you take a moment to write this, you can just circle what you have and cross out what you don't need. Okay, and then set up a proportion and solve it. So these notes will be online, so you actually get to see all this. Cross out what you don't have to reveal what you do have, or circle what you have so that you can cross out what you don't need, however you want to view it. Set up a proportion, solve it. Okay, so let's talk about elevation. When somebody says they're elevated, they're probably feeling pretty good, right? Look it up. Everything's good in the world. Elevation is from the angle of the observer. So it's from your viewpoint or your eye. This is the line of sight. This is the angle of elevation. Okay? I use this to find specific angles in problems. Now, depression, a little different. You're probably looking down. So this is your eyeball again, right? But now I'm looking down. I feel so sad. So the observer would lower their sight. So elevation, looking up. Depression, looking down. So the child at the top of the slide, his line of sight, if he looks down, this is the angle of depression. This angle. Okay? Let's try one. See if I can make it so you can see the whole thing. All right. So a sailor is on a plane and he's looking up at the plane at 20 degrees right here. So he's looking up at an angle of elevation and the plane is looking down at an angle of depression. Okay, so from this viewpoint, he's looking down at the boat and the sailor on the boat is looking up at the plane. And the reason why they're the exact same degrees is because you would make this a parallel line and these would be considered alternate interior angles. So a sailor is looking up at a plane of 20 degrees. The plane is reporting it's at 10,000 feet. So you can see the plane saying, hello, I'm at 10,000 feet. How far is the ship from the plane? So I'm looking from this viewpoint. So this becomes my angle. Circle it. Take a second and just circle it. I know it's going to seem mundane after a while to do that, but if you keep that process, it becomes second nature, and then all of a sudden you're like, ooh, that's easy. Label your sides. So this is the opposite side all the way across the triangle. This is the adjacent side right next to the angle, and your hypotenuse is across from that right angle, or your longest side. So how far is the ship from the plane? It means I'm going to be solving for the hypotenuse. So write out Sohcahtoa. Okay? Once you write that out, figure out what you have. I have the opposite side. Okay. What am I solving for? I'm solving for how far away these are. So I'm solving for the hypotenuse. Okay. Not using this, not using this. I'm going to use sine and that opposite side to solve for the hypotenuse with the angle of 20 degrees. So sine 20 degrees is equal to 10,000 over the hypotenuse. So how far away are they from each other? Well, a long distance, because by the time you do 10,000 divided by sine 20, it is 29,238.044 feet. So almost 30,000 feet away. So what is the angle of depression? I already talked about that. It's 20 degrees. Okay, two more examples of this. And I know you're looking at it going, well, I see three. No, we're going to skip the middle one. It uses inverse, and I haven't taught that yet. So skip. This type of problem will be in the next lesson. Okay, so we have two problems left. So Henry's standing on a rooftop, looking down at a boulder on the street. Now we're not questioning why he's standing there, okay? The angle of depression is 62 degrees. So that means that this is 62 degrees. And the building is 75 feet tall. So that's 75 feet. Okay? How far away is the boulder? Well, if he's looking down at 62 degrees, that means the boulder is looking up at him at 62 degrees. If you put little googly eyes on the boulder and he could do that. Don't do that. Actually, do that. It'd be funny. All right, so Sohcahtoa. Figure out what you have and what you need. Okay? What do I have from this angle? I have the opposite. Should have labeled my sides. Opposite, hypotenuse, adjacent. Okay. What do I need? How far away is the boulder? So it doesn't, what kills me about this problem is I didn't say how far away is the boulder from Henry or how far away is the boulder from the building. So we're just going to solve for both. So why not? So we have the opposite side. So from that, so you're going to use sine 62 equals 75 divided by all right, let's just call it H because that'll make more sense. So that is 84.9. So that's right here, 84.9 feet. Okay, but the other one is going to use tangent because I have 62 and I have, nope, it's not going to use tangent. I'm sorry, it's use cosine. I have opposite and I want to solve for the adjacent. Oh, it is going to use that. Sorry. So tangent 62. So from this angle, opposite, adjacent, 75 over, let's call it A for adjacent. So this is going to be wrong on the notes that I'm going to post online unless I get it corrected and redo it because I used cosine accidentally. 75 divided by tangent 62 is 39.9. Okay, and that's that side right there. So I'm going to make a note here. On notes, I used cosine. It's wrong. Only because I know, because I actually did that. Like, I'm not joking. I actually did it ahead of time and I did the wrong thing. So you're going to be like, oh, over. All right. Skipping that. Last one. Jose is flying a kite. Yay, fly a kite. So we are going to use Sohcahtoa. We are going to circle our angle. We're going to identify our sides, opposite of the angle, next to the angle, and the hypotenuse. And we're going to identify what we have. I have the hypotenuse, which means I'm not using tangent. And we're going to identify what they want us to solve for. So how high is the kite from the ground if Jose has let all 100 feet of his string? So I'm solving for this side right here. I want to know how high the kite is off the ground. Now this is assuming Jose's laying on the ground too. Or it's from where his hand is holding the string. So sine is what I'm going to use because I'm solving for the opposite side. Sine 52 is equal to x over 100, which means the kite is 78.8 feet off the ground. Okay? I know that learning trigonometry while you're distance learning is not going to be easy, and I fully expect to have questions or even small tutoring groups. I'm going to come up with a Flipgrid lesson that you're going to be required to do. It'll be online in the next few minutes after you guys actually do this lesson, because I'm going to be working on that today and it's a week away yet. So I will put that online for you. And then you guys can interact with each other as to how to do this, and we'll go from there. I'll have like a little thing that will lead you through the lesson and some problems, and you can kind of see how you did on it, if you know it or not. So this lesson altogether was close to like 52 minutes. So hopefully you watched it in parts and not the whole thing all at once, because yeah, that's a lot to take in. But like I said in class, I normally would go through this in one day, and this will be one of our long lesson days. Take care of each other. Talk to you soon. I'm sure you'll have questions. Please contact me.